All right, the Brooklyn Nets offseason review. The Nets made a ton of moves this offseason, and I mean like a lot of moves. So to make this easier for both you and me, I'm just gonna split their offseason into additions and subtractions. All right, starting off with additions. Additions to the team, they got Jonan Musa. I think it's pronounced Jonan, right? That's what I've heard from the announcers. Musa was drafted 29th overall. They re-signed Joe Harris to a 2-year, $60 million deal. They signed Ed Davis to a 1-year, $4.4 million deal. Shabazz Napier to a 2-year, $3.79 million deal. Travion Graham from Charlotte signed a 2-year minimum deal. And via trade, they acquired Kenneth Faried, Jared Dudley, and Denver's 2019 first-round pick. Subtractions from the team. They traded away Timothy Mozgov to Charlotte, Isaiah Whitehead to Denver, Jeremy Lin to Atlanta, Dante Cunningham signed with San Antonio, Nick Stauskas signed with Portland, and Jahlil Okafor left for the New Orleans Pelicans. Overall, I was really impressed with the Nets offseason. Trading away Mozgov for Dwight and then buying out Dwight is great because it clears up almost $16 million in cap space for next offseason. The Kenneth Faried trade was also pretty good for both teams. Denver got to clear $21 million so they could pay Jokic and Barton, while Brooklyn gets a first-round pick in return. The signings were all pretty decent and they're all short-term deals, so it's no problem anyways. Like for example, if Joe Harris got 4 years, $32 million instead of 2 years, 16, I would have had a pretty big problem with that because that does limit your cap space going forward. And we're not exactly sure if Joe Harris can be, let's say, average starter material yet. We've seen some flashes, we've seen some bad stuff, seen some good stuff. We're not quite sure yet. But again, 2-year, $60 million deal, it's going to be off in 2 years. It doesn't really matter. Let's talk drafting. They grabbed Musa with the 29th overall pick. Musa was actually higher than the 29th pick on almost everyone's draft board. But NBA teams weren't sure as to whether or not Musa would be able to come over and play immediately this next season. So many passed on him because of it. But Musa will, in fact, play this next season as a rookie. And it's going to be very interesting. He's an all-around fantastic scorer, 6'8" or 6'9"-ish, very good handles for his size, good jump shot, great ability to shoot off the dribble, pretty decent finish around the rim, and pretty good athleticism overall as well. But he does take a lot of bad shots. At least that was his playstyle in Europe. He needs to make some adjustments to his playstyle in the NBA. And although Kenny Atkinson will run some plays for him, probably coming off screens across the baseline and whatnot, Musa will also have to learn the game at a team level. He averaged less than 1 assist in his last season in Europe, despite playing 20 minutes per game. And Kenny Atkinson's offense will demand him to make plays with the ball in his hands that don't end up with him scoring. And like many rookies, Musa does need to put on some muscle, especially if he wants to play stretch 4 in the future. Yeah, they also drafted this guy Crux, who I know nothing about, so forgive me, but I'm gonna skip this one. Overall offseason grade, B+. The salary motivated moves were all really good. I can't complain about the Musa draft pick. They got Dudley over to come and mentor the young players. The only thing that I wish they did was re-sign Jahlil Okafor, but it's not too big of a deal anyways. Like I did with the Atlanta Hawks, I'm not gonna waste your time talking about the Brooklyn Nets upcoming season. They're probably not gonna make the playoffs. They have no incentive to make the playoffs because for the first time in like a million years, they actually have their own first-round draft pick. And to be honest, there's not that many interesting things to talk about anyways, so instead, let's talk a little bit about Brooklyn's future. Let's look into the future a little bit more. First off, massive round of applause to Sean Marks. This guy took over the team in 2016 as the general manager, and in the span of 2 years, he saved a sunken ship and brought it back to the surface. Now, the Brooklyn Nets are potentially looking at, and I think my math is correct, potentially $62 million of cap space in 2019. $62 million. Now, that's not taking into consideration D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who are all free agents and they would probably want to re-sign, but still, that's a lot of cap space. They probably don't have a chance to get someone like KD or Kawhi, but they could throw some max contracts at Kemba Walker or Tobias Harris. They could offer Chris Middleton more money than Milwaukee can. Not out of the question at all. And then depending on what they do in 2019, 2020 could be even better, since that's when they can finally get rid of Alan Crabb's $18 million per year salary. The Nets are in a good position. They don't have that franchise cornerstone yet, and yes, I am saying that D'Angelo Russell isn't good enough to build around, okay? I'm just being honest. I haven't seen enough from him, even though he was the 2nd overall pick. For some reason, D'Angelo Russell has a disproportionate amount of fans relative to how good he actually is. I remember the last time I said something bad about D'Angelo Russell and I got a bunch of crazy 13-year-olds yelling at me in the comments. Anyways, whatever. Moving on. The Nets still need to look for and wait for that guy to arrive. But hey, owning your future draft picks and having a lot of cap space is the exact right way to go about doing that, especially if you're not a huge free agency attraction. Vegas odds has Brooklyn winning 32 games. I think this is a safe over. The team is definitely better than last year, considering that the best player they lost, Jeremy Lin, didn't even play last year. D'Angelo Russell missed like half the season, and they added some good solid players like Ed Davis and Shabazz Napier who can come in and contribute right away. Kenneth Faried, for how bad his contract is and how out of place he seems in today's league, he could still see some playing time. So yeah, over for the Brooklyn Nets. If you want to check out the other NBA season previews, the link is down below. Peace!